On this episode of Wine Talks, I had a chance to visit my old stomping grounds out there in Manhattan Beach and have a conversation with Jeff Bonafetti and his wife, Kathy Knoll, who run the dual shop now called Uncorked. It's a fabulous, successful business, and happy to be down there. If you're going to give a gift this year for wine, it's particularly a subscription gift for wine, go to the California Wine Club, cawineclub.com, and use the promo code PaulK to receive 10% off your first order. The California Wine Club has been curating wines for its members for over 30 years, and there's something for everybody on your list, the wine novice to the wine enthusiast. Go to cawineclub.com and use the promo code PaulK. Now to the show.
Carson, Leno, Fallon. Now, it's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are at an away game all the way down in Hermosa Beach, about to have a conversation with Jeff Bonafetti and his wife, Kathy Knoll Bonafetti. How's that?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Hey, my old stomping grounds, happy to be back here. We're going to have a great conversation, introductions in just a moment. Wine Talks, of course, available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you hang out for podcasting. Hey, have a listen to Anne McHale. Just released her podcast. She is a master of wine and a diploma WSET out in London, who came from Belfast, Ireland, not the most typical wine region of the world, but crazy good conversation. Have a listen to that as well. Coming out in the next few weeks will be May Eliane Lonquezang, and she was in her mom's chateau when the Nazis came and shot it up. It's an incredible conversation. Look for that. But not why we're here today. Here to have a conversation with Jeff and Kathy. So glad to be here. I know it's hard to get us together, but
yeah,
thanks for having us.
Of course.
Yeah,
of
man.
course,
Thank
with this, we're a little active area here in Hermosa, in Manhattan Beach, so we might have
Very
some
active.
customers come in and ask some questions. So that's perfectly
That's
fine.
right.
We were talking off camera. We had an interesting, similar background in that I sold software for the Hewlett Packard systems, which was an image database. And I traveled the world like you did.
Yeah.
How is that? How is that for a training ground to do what you're doing today?
An excellent training ground because I could talk to anybody. I was always somebody who had the gift of gab. I guess growing up and living in different places around the country, and parents divorced when I was little, so it was you're always trying to speak up for something. And I think it works well for my wife too, being a middle child. Always wanting to be heard in a beautiful large family. So
Who's the middle child?
Me.
My
Guilty.
daughter yells at her middle
Guilty.
child. Don't give me that middle child syndrome stuff all the time.
sorry,
I
I'm
don't,
not trying
I
to
don't think
steal
I
her
have a
story.
syndrome. I think I
You're just
was
pretty
I was
much
good.
is.
I was good. I was the mediator in the family. Yeah.
Good mediator,
Yeah.
and she still
Anyway.
is, and keeps it together. But
What were you doing when he was selling software in the late 90s?
I've always been in sales too. I've been in. Worked for Pitney Bowes Corporation for 11 years. I worked for a scuba diving magazine.
yeah, tell us
Wow.
the Skin Diver.
Yeah,
the
Skin Diver magazine.
The
Traveled
skin
all
diver,
over the
We're
world.
not going to adult entertainment here. We're talking
No,
about,
it's scuba
okay.
diving. Scuba
Okay.
diving. But I sold advertising, and then I got into real estate, title insurance. But I always loved going to wine shops, and my
Really?
dream was
Me
always
too.
to open
Oddly enough,
a wine bar, wine shop, and
Were you around here?
I'm born and raised Palos Verdes, and went to Maryland High School. So
Oh my
a
God,
local,
we're rivals.
yeah.
I'm
And
a sea
then
king.
then I moved. I went to Arizona for college, and I came to Manhattan Beach, and then Hermosa Beach. And then Jeff and I met, and it was serendipity.
I had Kenny Kahn, who owns Blue Rock in Sonoma, and he said it was love at first sight when he met his wife in like Kansas or something. Was that accurate?
yeah,
Does that happen in this-
he's from the music business too.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah,
Does that happen in the industry? You love at first sight? Does that
I had
take a little while here? Look, she's smiling.
No,
at you.
he has an answer for this. He has
Well,
an
I
answer.
do have an answer for it. I had a crush on her. Oh God, in the late '90s, and she was we all had similar friends in different friend groups, and on our second date, I told her that I regretted not asking her out back then. So,
Wow.
He
and
told me
that was holidays of 2010.
Yeah, that's
Well,
when we.
much,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
That's when we started dating. He told us on second date, as he said, that he had a crush on me for 25 years. So
And you had no idea.
I had no idea, and I was ready to hear it. And we,
Wow.
you
That's
know,
a pretty fun story.
yeah,
So I was in Armenia doing some podcasting, and a gentleman came in. His name is James Tufanki, and he owns 5 hotels in Armenia, a wine brand.
Oh,
And I'd never met him.
Good wine there
He
too.
related to my wife, like fourth cousins or something. But he sits down and he said, and I'm in Armenia. I'm in Yerevan. We're not, anywhere near here. And I said, gee, nice to meet you. He goes, I want to tell you something. The biggest regret of my life is not marrying your sister. I'm like,
The hot sister.
Okay, then.
yeah, the regrets, the regrets.
Anyway.
Well,
So you were not, either one of you in this wine business, and we know how crazy this is. Uncorked has now 2
locations.
stores.
Yeah.
Very lovely
locations.
locations.
Yeah.
And they're both tasting rooms.
Yes.
Yes.
So they both carry regulations, which we're going to talk about as well.
Yes.
But I mean, this, you're from software, you're from title insurance. There's no really overlap. This is retail. It's alcohol, which has
Yeah,
got its
that's
own,
right.
restrictions that are a pain in the rear end.
True.
What are you going to do? How did this happen?
So again, like I said, I always dreamed of opening a wine shop because I loved going to wine bars. And I went in Sun Valley, Idaho, and there was a wine shop, a wine store that had wine tasting. And I thought that was so unique that you could actually walk into a retail store and do tasting. So it was on my radar. So fast forward, Jeff and I start dating. He is a savant. He starts teaching me everything about wine, and we'd go out to
Well, I
dates.
just
and
have always loved wine. I love cooking, so hence I really
Yeah.
kind of got into wine at a very young age. On the
But he
East
has an
Coast, and, yeah.
encyclopedia brain about
Yeah.
the details.
It's good
of
for
the wine.
sales.
He goes, yeah, she's right. That's all.
So we would go out on our dates, and I say, I'm a Cabernet girl. And he says, well, not with me. And he would make me try, the Petit Verdot's and the Albarenos and anything exotic on the
Wow.
menu, and to pair it with whatever we were eating. And then this opportunity came up in Hermosa. I had a friend who knew the owners of this wine shop. I had been to the wine shop, and we heard they were looking to sell. And I said to Jeff, we'd been dating about 2 months. What do you think about opening a wine shop?
And I
Yeah.
said I never really thought about it. And I go, why? I never
You should
thought
have
about
called
it.
me.
Why do you want to be a slave to a retail business? Probably if I would have talked to Paul, we probably never would have opened
Yeah,
the
you would
shop.
have started with mail order. But you started. I want to go back to the beginning of this because there's something about wine, and we're going to try and peel this back. And I've only heard a couple of really, really thoughtful answers on this because it's very difficult. But you liked to go to wine bars. Well, you can go to a regular bar. You can have Jack Daniels. You can have Jim Beam. You could have a Aperol Spritz. But you liked going to wine bars. But did it make you feel something different?
No, I just, my girlfriends, we just,
Did you talked? Was there more engagement because it was a wine bar?
yes, I believe so. And I liked learning about the wines.
Yeah.
And I took a couple wine classes that we were all interested in learning a little bit more. This is probably my 30s and into my early 40s. So yeah, I guess I'm telling my age.
The two things about wine I always tell customers, and I always knew this from when I was younger and from some wise old souls, but the two things about wine is one thing is it's personal and it's cultural. And there's a lot of connections made with wine, with food at the dinner table, or breaking some kind of bread with a friend or a relative. And you remember things. And I've always had that trapdoor memory, especially about wine.
Mm.
So it's always been interesting to me.
But the wine bar, you're usually more engaged with the bartender or the wine server.
Right.
Because
True.
you're talking, it's not just like a
I
regular
mean, there's
bar
always a
situation.
story. There's always
Yeah.
stories.
You were talking about the girlfriends. A woman named Tilar Mazio, who wrote the book Madame Clicquot, started
Uh-huh.
exactly like that. You guys now own 2 wine shops for the
Uh-huh.
same reason. And they would meet and have champagne together. And she started going, this is a very interesting story. I don't know what the story's about. And she would come with little anecdotes about Madame Clicquot, and hence becomes a New York Times best-selling author.
Yep.
And here, similar story, in a book, but you have created 2 entities that are pleasing people and creating this culture and this personal relationship, which is really so important in what we do. Because I don't know, if you guys subscribe or look on Facebook, do you see the ads that are going on right now at Christmas time? My old
course.
business is running $120 cases, $10 a bottle, and then the next ad is $69 cases from a company called Vino Cheapo.
Yeah. Or the text
It's true.
wine,
It's true.
the
It's
text wine deal.
Yeah,
It's a very competitive space.
Yeah.
So you gotta maintain something special, and unique.
So this comment of being personal and cultural, and the beach has always been a great place for wine consumption because as the clientele is
Yeah.
a little more sophisticated, a little more articulate. Um, people come in this store. What are they looking for?
They're looking for.
Do they come in, I want a Sancerre, or do they come in and say, what do you got that goes with? Or
They come
All
in
of
and
it.
do both,
All of
but
it, yeah.
they come in and do both, but they do come in and ask for a Sancerre because they want it, and then you find out quickly from that customer if they know that Sancerre is Sauvignon Blanc or not. Of course, we try to connect with a customer immediately when they come in. Obviously, we greet them, but we want them to feel welcome. And there's been this kind of adage about the stuffiness of the wine shop or the bottle shop that spans a long time, and we don't want to be intimidating to a customer. We do we have expensive wine in here? We have expensive wine in here, but do we have wine that's a great value? We have a wine that's a great value, but everybody's perceived value is different. You have a bulk of people who are really interested in that $25 bottle of wine or something less. And you have people who come in and I don't want to touch a bottle of wine unless it's $100 because I just know that I'm not getting a good bottle of wine. And the great thing about wine tasting is you discover things that you never ever thought about or considered, and you have those aha moments. And that's really, to me, what it's all about. And I think that goes back to what Kathy said, that, with girlfriends and having fun, is there's some aha moments and fun moments that you learn or you kind of glean from either going to a winery, whether it's in Santa Barbara really close, or you go into a wine shop, or you go into a wine bar that's somewhere in LA, or it's down here. And we want to provide that experience right here in Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach.
So you don't have to go up to Napa. You don't have to go to St. Inez. But I'll tell you, one of Jeff's greatest talents is if you tell him what you like about a wine, he can find the perfect bottle for you. If
That's a talent.
People
It
come
is.
back and just say, you nailed it. You hit it
Yeah,
on the head.
that's a
This
huge
was
talent.
exactly what I was thinking about. And most of our staff is very educated
But
and, can, and knows what they're doing.
But
And
like in sales, as you know, Paul, I mean, you have to be confident. You have to confidently tell someone the story.
well, you know it.
And no, hope is not a good strategy.
I said,
Yeah,
you
never
know
in
it.
sales, right?
You know it.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Because most of my friends that can drink wine, they can't necessarily articulate what they taste, but they know it's different than the bottle before. And most of it's just the confidence to say something
Yep.
that intimidates them.
afraid.
Do you think that, and I this is my opinion is of this, but I'm asking your question. You can differ with me if you want. I think that the wine industry sort of propagates this aristocracy, and because of the conversations and the videos you watch now, and they're swirling and sniffing, and I taste cedar and I taste leather and I taste whatever, and people go, I don't taste that, and then they go like, well, I don't belong in this community, and I think here, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you breaking down that barrier a little bit by having these conversations?
Yeah, we like to. That's a main thing. We have a tasting list. There are notes on it. One of the first things I tell people is, don't look at the notes. Just see what you like.
Right.
Try the wine. And then you look at the notes and then there you have that moment. I do taste a little toasted cherry with saddle leather. I mean, nobody eats leather, but somebody smelled a leather coat when they walk in a really cool shop, or they're at a bar, at a ski area, or whatever it is, or they smell the smoke of wood coming from the restaurant across the street that's doing smoked meat or smoked vegetables or whatever it is. Those type of things, or just even in a little set of topiary roses, or you smell lemon verbena. You can smell the like master somms, especially, masters of wine. The ideal touchstone for wine is a sense of place. So what that wine gives you for that particular year, whatever you're drinking, you can glean that from when you feel like you're there. It's a sense of place.
Is that understood by your client? When you sit down and say, look, and you say it's a sense of place, does that register yet? Or do some people not understand what you're saying quite yet?
Most people don't understand that.
Yeah.
But when they get into that sensory moment, and if you talk to them in a way in which they would understand, you don't get too complex, they do get it.
Yeah.
Or they have a friend that they trust, and they're sitting there talking with them, and they're like, yeah, you remember that time? Oh yeah, I totally get it now. It doesn't take that much, but I do like I do like the idea of a sense of place. For me, it really resonates. So
It's an important. It is what it is. I mean, it is what we are supposed to be. Right?
Yeah.
It is. The wine should be that because it should express something that you don't get anywhere else in the world with any other beverage.
true.
Jack Daniels is supposed to taste like Jack Daniels every time they bottle it, right? That's the master distiller's job,
It is.
right? And the brewmaster's job is to make sure Bud Light, even though no one's buying it anymore, tastes like tastes like Bud Light. But this is a pet peeve of mine: is the store wines, the Joshes, the Apothic Reds, the Plunger Heads that. And here, you said something important. You said it's a personal choice.
It is.
And I had a woman the other day. I was happening in the market, and she was walking. I engaged in her conversation. I said, "What are you looking for?" She says, "Something other than what I usually drink."
People do want to experiment all the time.
If you're right here at Vaughn's, you say, hey, walk out of here, go down 2 blocks and go to Uncorked.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I will say the girl that used to work Vaughn's was really, really exciting young lady. She really loved wine. Apparently fell in love and went to Tennessee a couple of years ago. But
One of our employees started
Well,
at
we
Vaughn's,
have a
and
couple of
and
employees
she
who
ran a wine place department over there, and
at
another one at
Vaughn's,
Bristol.
and we had one at Bristol Farms,
Yeah,
and they enjoyed it, but did it get to a bit of a grind? Sure, there's a
it's
pallet of
corporate
wine
America.
come in, you got to break all the 43 different ones that come on that pallet from the large distributor. Sure, that doesn't mean that they don't have good selections of wine, but what you said was really the nail on the head. I want to try something that I haven't tried
And
before.
we tried to do a wine
Raced
of the
around.
week,
Yeah,
each week with
right.
something
that's a
different,
good idea.
special. And like just coming off Thanksgiving, we did a Lambrusco
Really?
and turned a lot of people on to
Yeah.
a sparkling red.
Small production
So-
Lambrusco
Yeah.
from a
Really
lady
sweet.
who has a husband who's lives in Bologna, and he's getting ready to move to the U.S. She's from New York. She moved here to Ventura, and we love her. Sheila Donahue from Verovino. Very small book, but she imports some really beautiful wines.
That's
We
where
actually-
we would have sold a lot of Lambrusco back in the day in PV Liquor, but it was a different kind of wine then.
Were you needy?
Yeah.
Chillicella.
Yeah.
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 I grew up in the 70s. I remember all those commercials.
Yeah.
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 So
Were
this
you
is-
needy on ice?
This is an interesting point you just made because I see how many SKUs you have, how many different bottle brands you have here.
Oh, God. At one given time, we're
That's
anywhere from 600 to 1,000.
Okay, so
Mhm.
600 to 1,000. And today, for the listeners, what's happening in our industry, there's a lot of consolidation. Some of these great smaller distributors are closing, being absorbed by Southern or RNDC or somebody like that.
Right.
And here you are, and as a merchant, the more vendors, the more checks, the more paperwork. So you can, like, you and I can probably walk into any restaurant in Manhattan Beach and know who owns that list, right?
Of course.
Right.
It's
We-
just easier.
I
We
try
know
not
the
to. I
vendors.
try not to walk in those
But you-
restaurants.
I mean, I even told the Author J manager years ago, I'm like, God, this list got to be too hard to manage, man. You must have 100 vendors here. So how many different vendors do you think you have here?
Oh God. In the dozens, I would say 7 or 8 dozen, probably.
You're kidding.
Probably
So how do they find you? Are
more
they-
than that. They find
You
us
reach out?
through, one rep worked for one and went to another one, or you, Paul, started your own book and started importing. And hey, you should, just one of those things. We have friends. We have people who have a 2 pages. We have people who have, obviously a phone book like RNDC or Wine Warehouse, now Breakthrough, or aren't,
But we
Sou-
deal a
Southern
lot with a
Glazers.
lot of the smaller vendors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I can
it's
tell
what-
by the list.
Yeah.
I
in
can
12,
tell by
it's
your
12 years. We've made a
inventory.
lot of relationships with a lot of different people.
There's some big names in there, but we try to keep it to a minimum. It's not that I'm against it. There's ones that, tug some heartstrings, and I keep them in here, and we like selling them. We just did an event Thursday night with Duckhorn. Last night.
What was it?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
last night,
losing
yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
What was this?
Duckhorn?
With Duckhorn.
With Duckhorn.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're direct.
What's
So
the-
you
what
deal
was the
direct
gal's
with them.
name? The rep?
The rep who lives here, Lindsay. Lindsay Shapiro is the rep here, young
Yes.
lady.
I had somebody else.
There was someone
That's
before
fun.
that.
But a
I think
couple-
you should show those things.
Yeah, and a couple weeks ago, we did a local friend that has a winery up in Paso, William Robert Wines,
Yeah,
and they're not distributed. So we
local
just did a
friend.
direct.
She went to
so-
high school
Yeah,
with
and
one of the
so-
owners.
But amazing wines. They're
So
really
how those
yummy.
stories received then when you bring these people in? Like Duckhorn's a huge story, but then you bring in a local guy that only sells direct. I mean,
Well, we were packed.
They loved this?
We were
We were
packed.
packed.
You know,
Really?
They
because
have
that
all
was
their friends
that
here.
was a local
Yeah.
event. You know, he
Yeah.
lives in Manhattan Beach, and then Duckhorn was very busy. And last week we did caviar and champagne, and just to spice things up for the holidays. So
Holy
we have a
cow.
great team of being creative. And you know what? It really got kind of on steroids during COVID. We just started a bingo and bubbles, and we did tons of corporate events.
Yep.
We did, you know, we would
It was
ship
fun.
baskets of things to people
60,
and do
100
virtual
people online,
tastings.
you
Wow.
know.
So
That's
now
big.
we always do Hermosa. We always do a theme every Wednesday.
Yeah.
You have a winemaker in, and we have
Or
music.
focus on a region or something if we don't have that
And
scheduled.
Was this effort expected when you started doing this? I mean, and I think you're absolutely on the right track with today's internet marketing, having completely blurred the lines of any kind of handshake selling. It's strictly price. That's all they're looking for. And then, but here you are creating these experiences for people to come in. Did
Yeah.
you expect these long days and
Not in the very beginning.
you weren't sure you're gonna be
Uh,
closed
that-
at 5 o'clock?
Yeah. Well, and also when
Oh,
we
I had those when we first opened in Hermosa Beach. I mean, thank God my son was a toddler, but I got to tell you, there's a big
Yeah,
piece of me,
lot
big
of
piece of my
ladies.
soul, it was there 80, 100 hours. I mean,
well,
it was
in
a
the
lot.
beginning, it was us
Yeah.
running the shop.
A couple,
And-
maybe one or two staff members that were friends.
Yeah.
And then now we're really lucky. We have an amazing staff. They're all passionate about wine. Some of them have WSET level 3 type thing. Some of them have their scholar diplomates with the court and different things.
and certifications,
Yeah,
Spanish
they're
wines,
very
Italian
passionate,
wines.
and
Yeah,
we're
yep.
lucky. We literally have we have no turnover whatsoever. We're all kind of like-minded.
That's very fortunate.
We're very fortunate that
Good
way.
family. Yeah.
It's a good little family. Sometimes it can get a little.
Well, retail's
It'll
hard.
get a-
And,
But
you're
you know,
dealing with-
this is one area that I loved. I loved the whole the party planning and the marketing around that. And we in our Hermosa location are fortunate enough to have a parking lot right behind us. So we were able to start having parking lot parties. And we started with doing our anniversary every year, where we would have our vendors come and we'd do 60 plus wines out there.
Yeah,
and
it's damn near
Wow.
30
It's
by
been-
30
it's
square,
been
so it's a
so
large
well-
space.
Wow.
so well received that we get 150 to 200 people, and it sells out as soon as we put the tickets on
We
sale.
had a rosé event,
and
rosé
then we
all
did
day.
rosé all
yeah,
day. We
yeah.
did a Spanish and paella event,
Wow,
Spanish
yeah,
wines, and
that's a lot of work,
it is. But
a lot
I
of
do
work.
enjoy it. I have the energy for it. Our staff has the energy for it. Jeff sometimes is
There's
like,
a lot of
really?
times I'm like, honey, that's a lot of work.
I don't know. Well, my dad, the thing, my dad was a pharmacist. He had 6 pharmacies. His retailer through and through. And that's how the Wine of the Month Club started was he goes, this is just getting really hard. And in fact, Malik Kobe, we were talking about it. His pharmacy at one point was licensed to sell prescription drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So figure that one out. Right. I don't know how the TTB even allowed that or
Yeah,
back then
really.
the TABF.
Yeah.
But he was decided mail order is the way to go. I want to go home at 5 o'clock. And you guys have a club. Is this, I listened to the other podcasts and we were talking a little bit about your 1,000, 1,200 members. And maybe there's a little bit of a wall here, but how is that as far as your relationship with the customers? And do you pitch it all the time? Or they're like, hey, this is really fun. Do you have a pickup party? What do you do?
Well,
to
in the
make this a
beginning
club?
when we started,
We've done it all, actually.
yeah,
but
we used to have a first Thursday pickup party.
and then we did.
and
We
then-
added a Wednesday. Then we didn't. In COVID, during pandemic,
we
we
couldn't
didn't
do
do as much.
But we have
and
benefits that we only ship to about 5 people. So this is how
Yeah.
localized
Really?
the business
That's
is.
great.
We become the local gathering place, and we've only been here in Manhattan Beach for about 3 years. So we've been 12 years there.
Yeah.
So it really became the gathering spot, and we have people that have met and become friends and engaged. And a lot of these people are now longtime friends with our staff. A group of them went to Champagne together last year and to Italy last year. So it's this camaraderie that we built makes us really proud of what we've created, because it's fun to be
Absolutely.
this part of this sense of community, and
'Cause-
really be a part of these cities that we love. you
Yeah.
know?
Some of the
Totally.
early advice I ever got was make it a club. Make it a club. Make it a reason to belong.
And that's one of the things. Just being total neophytes, opening our business. We were at night at home, and Kathy would be like, okay. So she would always think of numbers. If we need to sell this many bottles a day, and let's see, what do we need to do to pay the rent? Okay. And
Yeah.
I would say, well, the one thing we have to do if we're doing wine tasting is we need to have a wine club. and we start getting people to play at the wine club. It's a subscription model. They give us a monthly fee. We give them beautiful wine and some benefits, and then they keep coming back for more impressions in our shop because it's a personal touch. So I said, we have to have a wine club.
Yeah.
And so it was just from there, we had no idea
And they get the
how popular
discounts
it was
off
going to be.
the tastings. They get
that's very
discounts at
good,
the
actually.
store. They get invited to certain events.
Yep.
And yeah.
We've done wine club exclusive events, which we try to do at least 1 or 2 a year, if not try to do some more. But we all try to add a benefit from any, like for the Duckhorn tasting, the wine club member always gets $5 or $10 off, depending on what it is. So we try to make sure that they feel that they get a benefit for being in the club, no matter what.
Those
whenever
are good.
they walk in the shop. That's what's important.
I can say, having done this for so long, that I think the industry is going back to this touch, to this handshake, to this interface. Maybe it's a Zoom call tasting, maybe it's in-store tasting, but I think the only way that the industry grows again is that we get off the internet, we get off of the cheapest thing you can find.
I agree.
And you share some stories.
Absolutely
Isn't it
agree.
about the story?
Yeah, it's totally about the story. Like it goes all the way back to personal and cultural. It's about people interacting with other people. And the common bond is the wine.
Yeah. So why is that? This is the part that gets very hard to define.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did this podcast the other day with this 98-year-old woman from Bordeaux, I had met her in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets on the call and she says, "Good to see you again." Like, oh my God, you remember? And we got on this conversation. And then she says, look what it did. Look what wine did for us. 30 years later,
Yeah.
we're having
Yeah.
a conversation.
Yeah.
And I never
A
thought of
bond.
that.
It's a
right?
bond.
It's a
It
bond.
is a bond.
And why is this? Why is it a bond? Is it because it's from the earth, it's from the soil, because it's, I mean, we could talk about the micronutrient exchange at the tap roots.
It's a good time.
It's 14%
Well,
alcohol. We know that much, right?
Well, yeah. I
The
mean,
word that encompasses all of it is terroir, but it is about, there is a winery, a beautiful winery in Santa Ynez called Story of Soil. So there is that. It is a story, and there is a human touch to it, and
There's a humanity about it.
yeah,
there is a
there's a
humanity.
bond because
there's hands involved.
people are interested
know?
and you have information. And I would love when we would taste with the vendors and you'd hear the stories about the wine, because then it's like that's when it gets embedded in your memory that
The other thing-
that you want to get it again, and it was you liked how it tastes, but you knew the story behind it.
And the other thing about wine is it's like us. It's not perfect. It never is.
No.
It's different every year.
Right.
I don't care what it is. And can you drink formulaic wine? You can drink formulaic champagne. We know that, but we also know that it's not perfect. There is an imperfection to it that's a beautiful thing. And that's a big thing. For me, that's a big thing with wine.
I think that's the challenge of any winemaker, which is I've got to maintain this terroir. I've got to express what happened that year in my wine, but I also have to make sure, and I think this is different with the biodynamic movement generally, I have to make sure that when somebody opens a bottle of this wine, that they sort of know that it's my wine. Now, that obviously a very trained taster, and et cetera, but we buy, I don't buy Cheval Blanc all the time, but let's just say a nice wine that we know we're going to taste. So let's say I'm going to go back to my roots, Sanford Pinot Noir, in the early 80s, right? You knew what Dick Sanford was doing, and you expected that kind of character, but at the same time,
Another Palos Verdes guy.
yeah, that's right. He was trying to balance what's in that bottle with what's being given to him, and not be it. So, but I've had biodynamic wines, and we'll talk about that right now, where, man, from vintage to vintage is so radically different because, it's only an expression of what they've been given. Do you have a call for organic and biodynamic here?
We have a big call for it here.
Really? I had none.
I would say more so in Manhattan Beach than, also Hermosa.
No, we started our organic wine club about 2 years ago, and it's been consistently growing.
It's a
and
small section
we,
of
we
our...
have 6 different clubs, so we
Right.
got lots of options. But we have an area in the shop that's for natural wines, and also orange wines are becoming very popular.
Mhm.
And we also try to delineate all the natural wines in Hermosa Beach with like a green tag with the write-up on it, So we're getting a
Ooh,
lot
the
of
green
interest.
tag. That sounds
Yeah, well, a little
That
bit.
sounds
light green
organic.
tag.
Yeah,
We just try to
keeping
get
great-
people to see that. I mean,
see that that's organic.
there's a lot of wine that's organic.
You know-
We might not have a green tag, but in Europe, wine's been being made naturally for
exactly.
centuries.
South America.
Some of the
yeah.
6,000. I mean, from your home country, the home country of your ancestors in Armenia, right around there. That's where wine was first made over 6,000 years ago. I mean, orange wine's been around that long.
But I think
white wine used to be always orange.
it's becoming
You're right.
trendy a lot too because of this low sugar, low carb also. So that and then for since we've opened, people are like, how come when I'm in Italy I don't get those headaches? They want that lower sulfite. So there's definitely a calling for it. We actually just launched a whole separate club that we're gonna do online and called All Natural Wine Club.
You're going to help us, Paul.
And you're going to help us because you're the
Yeah.
expert. Yeah. Anyway, but because we are seeing that there's a lot of interest in this area.
There
you know?
is.
And they're getting better. Some of them at first because they don't have a great shelf life. Everyone was jumping on board. And, some of them are
I'm glad you
not
said
the
that.
not the best.
Well,
But I
because
think they're
I
really
don't
coming around.
I don't understand. This is human. The human part of this. Hey, let's take a break for our sponsor, Total Wine & More. There's always something new to try at Total Wine & More. I love this place. The other day I was in looking for a Napa Red and stumbled across the Prosecco aisle and had to buy this Prosecco that was fabulous for under $8. A great alternative to other types of sparkling wines. And then there's French Rosé at under $7, which is incredible. A huge selection of Kentucky bourbon. And with these low prices, I had to get both the wines that I was looking at. With the lowest prices over 30 years, always find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine & More. You can't buy spirits in Virginia or North Carolina. Please drink responsibly, and you must be 21 to purchase. That's Total Wine & More. Check it out. Back to the show. The monks were organic of Burgundy, the monks of Bordeaux. I mean, the Bordelais invented copper sulfate like in 1942 or something.
Right.
I mean, it was always organic.
Always.
I mean, so why are we allotting ourselves for making wines the way they always were made? And for a while there, it was almost an excuse to produce crap because they
True.
tasted bad.
But if you think about how the world went, like even after World War II, with the height of industrial might and manufacturing and right over wrong, the Allies over the Axis. I'm not going to go into all about the war, but what I am going to say is think about after the war, we had to have like preservatives for our troops. We had to preserve food. We had to be able to sustain things from that time. And in the 50s and 60s, tons of preservatives in food, things that weren't that great for you, right? Now we're coming back to how things happened in Europe and in Asia Minor. Everything was always natural. You go to Europe now, most of the restaurants you eat at, their fruits and vegetables are coming from right around behind the building, I mean, I miss the tomatoes in Italy all the time. I dream about them.
Yeah, they're scary good.
Same thing in Armenia. Same thing anywhere around there. You don't have like industrialized, produce available all the time like we have in America. Now, America is doing a good job to come back to natural portions. But when you go back to wine, the one thing about our shop, the one thing about coming back to this type of situation where you would come to a shop like ours or anywhere is human curiosity. It's the curiosity about knowing about what you're putting into your body.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people now, young and all the way into, I'll be 60 in January. People even older than me, they're worried about what they put in their body. 20-year-olds are worried about what they put in their body. When I was in my 20s, I wasn't really worried about what I was putting in my body.
We were going to
I was going to the health club, going over, I was playing basketball every night. I was doing my thing. I still was into sport, everything. I didn't care, but I wasn't all about, there's a lot of vitamins and supplements out there. And a lot of us are really curious and we want to do that, and we want to add the more collagen back into our milk and coffee, and we're getting back to more, the curiosity of being natural as human beings. And there is data that says human beings do live longer now, and the younger human beings that are being raised that way will live longer. So that's really kind of the human existence, it's the curiosity. So
My daughter lives in Potsdam, New York. If you don't know where that is, it's the edge of the world right across the street.
Oh yeah.
So, but she
Potsdam.
was here. She was visiting from New York a couple of weeks just before October, and my wife pulled out a nonstick pan and started to cook with it. And we have 2 grandkids. She has 2 grandkids. They're toddlers.
I won't
And
touch the food out of that
she
pan.
will not. So we went home to Arcadia, and my wife tossed all the nonstick pans. And I think that trend is accurate. I don't know that positioning wine, low sugar, low carb, or whatever these current trends are contribute to this healthy lifestyle. I think it is trends. Wine is not kombucha. It's not meant to be a smoothie with
No.
your protein powder in it. It's meant to do something else in your life. And so I think this stuff is just trendy. And this is the reason I think that is my romantic view of wine, which is all generations eventually, and that's why Armenia was making wine 6,000 years ago, land on something that turns them on.
Yep.
And they realize what this ethereal value really is. And maybe that's what happens here at Uncorked all the time.
But your brain, you remember things. I mean, God forbid you don't at a certain age, but there's a certain smell. If I'm going behind that old Mercedes going by our shop right now, if I smell the exhaust from that car, it reminds me of when I was a kid in 1971.
That's so accurate.
You know, and my mom is
And you're
playing.
like, how did I do that?
My mom is playing. You know, burning out Carole King Tapestry album. You know,
Yeah,
or
right.
you know, or Harry Nilsson, something like that. I remember that, right? So I remember the first time I tasted, you know, a really nice Bordeaux at a restaurant in New York City with my stepfather, and he's trying to teach me a little bit about wine. And he's ordering some really cool bottles that are a lot of money now,
Yeah,
Cheval Blanc,
right.
that type thing. I remember the first time I ever had Bruce. You know, I mean, do I buy it on a regular basis? Absolutely not.
right.
But do I love tasting wines that mimic that for, you know, $50 or 20, whatever? Absolutely. And that is a thing that happens on this planet, and that happens here in California and other places. And it's fun to
I think
to
the
do
sensory,
That. It's a
our
sensory
senses
thing.
are so memorable, and
Yeah.
smell and taste are 2 of them. I was delivered a quiche in Paris at some touristy bistro, and my wife's like, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "This is my mom's quiche
Right.
from
Really?
like 40 years ago."
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, I'm like,
When you
"Whoa."
were 11 or
Yeah,
whatever, 10,
right.
you know, whatever it was, you know, or those type of things, you know, perfume, of course. So the nose in wine, if you smell some kind of floral thing, it might take you to somewhere that you've been. It's just like a song. It's like music.
Yeah,
It's very similar.
that's true.
Very
It's very
similar
true.
to music.
Well, I
Right.
do love it when you and Janelle and Nancy, some of the more of our wine connoisseur or wine geeks in the
Yeah,
Oh,
the Uncorked
geeks.
family, when they start, you know, putting out the adjectives,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
it's fun.
Yeah, but
yeah,
and
yeah.
it isn't like always in the notes, you know. I mean, people
No.
do. Oh, you know,
Yeah.
you see
Like
the
you-
comedians on Saturday Night Live. You know, well, I smell. You know, I
There was
smell
a
the essence
commercial.
of beeswax, or
See,
you know,
if you're 60, I'm 65. There was a commercial. You probably were young enough. It was on TV, and this guy swirling, and he goes, "This was picked by a one-armed, you know, one-legged, you know," and he goes on to sing it, you know, Marceau or something. I'm like, it's very funny.
Yeah.
I have some sad news for you though, because I went to evaluate somebody's cellar in my neighborhood. It happened to be my doctor, which I didn't know until I got there, and they had dug a hole in their basement, and they dug a hole, but there was a hole there. I mean, below grade, and all these wines, and they're all completely shot. And
Really?
one of them was a Petrus, and it was from Trader Joe's, and it was $19.95.
Yep.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh, yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, the wines we talk about now, those kind of, they
Crazy.
weren't
Well, we
an
had-
arm and a leg. They were expensive,
We-
but they
Yeah.
weren't an arm
We
and a leg.
had a wine club member bring in a bunch of 1975
Ooh,
different wines.
74,
74.
75. Yeah.
But there was a couple good ones in there, but a couple, you know, most
tough
of them
vintage,
were, yeah.
but that's okay.
Tough vintage, but the Cheval Blanc was nice. The Aubryon was nice. We had Aubryon, we had Margot, we had
Wow,
Latour, we had Cheval Blanc.
The
Little first growth tasting of a shitty year,
yeah, well,
allegedly.
that's
But
all right.
we were just going and having fun with it. You know, I sell Durand, so we use a Durand. It was great. And,
That's great.
you know,
Yeah.
we have fun with that stuff. We have a couple of collectors we get a few things from and can sign here. So we like to have wine here from, It's 2023. We like to have wine. I think we have a 43, a 53, 63. So we have a few
For this
one-offs.
Really
special
fun.
occasions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really
And it's
fun.
not really, we don't really, it's not about making the money, but it's about the personal touch and it's about the experience that person gets to have having that wine. Whether it's shoe leather or bong water in a bottle, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's
right.
about having the bottle
having it.
unopened, you know.
I was
Anyways,
very fortunate. The guy bought the company, and it just maybe for the future. I sold the assets. I didn't sell the operation. I sold the list, but I was not going to work anymore, and so we didn't need to sell them the guaranteed revenue stream.
right.
I go, if you did it right, you'll get the revenue stream. But
Absolutely.
but he didn't take any of my premium stuff, which during COVID, they were buying anything we told them to buy,
Yeah.
as you probably experienced. And so I started collecting stuff. Now I got this incredible collection
Okay.
that I have no place to put because
Okay,
I had
well,
to build
let's-
a cellar at my mom,
We got a couple spots we
at
can
my
put.
home.
Yeah, we can help you out
And
there.
I'm unboxing some of this stuff going, oh my God, where did I get this?
Now, you're not going to
Anyway,
drink all of it.
exactly.
So there's
tell
a
me
lot
about-
of people like you and I and 10 years older that are like that. And
Yeah.
that's a thing, you know. I'm not going to drink all this wine. It's a great investment, but I need to get it to
No.
people who are going to drink it.
But I'm hogtied with this collector mentality because I have some of my customers were huge collectors.
That's the
Anything I could
thing.
touch, if I could get them Screaming Eagle or
Of course.
Second Flighter, I'd get it. But I have the same mentality now. I look at this Grand Cru and I go, God, if I open one, I'm not going to have it anymore. And that's the attitude,
All
right?
right. And then
It's
you
like going
hold,
through your
hold on to it and hold on to
it's
it.
like going through your closet. I'm like, I have all these really beautiful Canali sport coats,
Yeah.
and I'm never really going to wear all
Right.
of them anymore ever again. There was a
Sound like my
time when I
wife.
wore them a lot, and I can't wear them, and I just got to get rid of them.
So
you
tell
know?
me about the we're almost done here actually, but there's been a huge movement for cans, Tetra Paks, alternative packaging, some of it in the vein of lowering the carbon footprint. I'm not a huge proponent of the reason that we would get away from the standard glass bottle, but does anybody walk in asking for that? And what do they think?
Smaller percentage. We are at the beach.
That's what I was going to say.
So it
For the
does make
beach, it's
sense here.
convenient.
Good
It
point.
goes in your beach bag really nice. There are very, very drinkable, way past drinkable, good quality tasting wines that are fun and having a can, you know, with the girls at the beach or with friends.
We
you know,
we
and-
have a friend who started this Roseade, which has been really popular.
Which one?
yeah,
it's,
Roseade.
It's rosé
So
and lemonade
It's
mixed in a
rosé,
can.
and it's a sparkling rosé and lemonade in a can. It's a beautiful
That's
little
a big
package.
grab and go for people down at the beach.
Yeah.
But it's not your big wine thing.
And
Obviously.
he's a
We got the
local. He grew up here. Carl Ziegler, great guy. You might even know him, and his lovely wife Victoria, and they are doing great. And they're about to maybe hit that cup with the handles, they say in the stock market, and launch even further higher into the air. And I only wish the best for them. We do sell their product, and it's Roseade. It's really good. It was an Australian producer that he one time. I'm not going to take his story, but they met on Instagram, and he brought it in, and now they manufacture it here, and it's a beautiful little product. But the canned wines, there's a lot of them out there. There's some that are questionable, I would think, and it goes back to when it gets to that larger production level. What's
Well, they have been-
happening with it? You know,
They were improving. You can get appellated vintage stuff in a can. I don't know that does any justice. I just look at the RNDC truck. It just left.
yeah,
And it
it's
had
here
high-
every
it
day.
had High Noon.
It doesn't stop for us,
High
but
They had the High Noon brand on the side. And I
Yeah.
got some of the office still, unfortunately. But here's my problem with it in general. I've had 2 or 3 podcasts with young women and families that are trying to create a canned wine. Somebody even thinks that they invented the 187 glass bottle. I don't know why that's so unique, but it's not because of the wine passion. This is the problem I have. Now, maybe it's just the romantic part of me, but it's not because of that. It's because they want to get the placements and be like Dow,
Yep.
right? I mean, Dow wasn't worth $900 million in the sense of the pure financials, but their retail reach is
They
off the
did it.
charts, right? So
hats off to Neb.
so the point I'm making is, yeah, of course, many of these upstarts are to not create a brand of value. It's to create a brand of packaging so that maybe, Golden Road, which is a great story for
Yeah.
Budweiser buying them. They can retire on their billions of dollars or millions.
Right.
And I hate that.
I hate it too. It's about a liquid event, and
Yeah.
I'm not in that business anymore. In software. I mean, my dear friend who created it, and I made really good money selling it all over the country. He lives right up the street. they sold to a nice company in the industry that we were in Chicago, and it was a good takeout. But it was, it's about that. It's not really about that for us. It's a lifestyle business, and it's about the passion. And we do well. We don't kill it. We're not in it to kill it. It's a lot of fun. It's really more about fun and being happy. And I don't know, not sailing off into the sunset here, but it is about fun and being happy. It definitely is.
Here's what the winemaker for Mao Ying told me, and I've quoted 1,000 times. I meet amazing people. I go to amazing places. Drink amazing wine. Eat amazing food. I don't make a lot of money.
That's pretty much it.
But the lifestyle's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're done. You're on your way to incredible things, I think. And I realized when I was traveling in Europe last week how fortunate we are to be in this industry, to have these conversations. If you reach out to people in the like industry when you're traveling, you'll be treated with golden gloves. I had dinner with a guy that just bought a winery in Bordeaux. We met in Paris and we had this incredible meal. He brought his kids. I had my grandkids, and we don't even know each other.
Yeah.
But I reached out to him. So I forgot how it happened, but
Instant
But
bond.
that
Congratulations.
happens in this business, and
Yeah.
it happens especially in Europe. I mean, we were treated.
In Italy,
Any of the
did
trading
a-
partners we hooked up with, whether I bought
It's
2 cases
incredible.
from them or
it
40
doesn't matter.
cases,
That's
doesn't
off
matter.
the charts.
Doesn't matter. They roll out the red carpet for you. They want you to feel at
And
home.
these are like 40 generations, or
begging you to
something.
come
Yeah,
back whenever
they-
you
it's
want.
crazy.
You always have a place to stay with us, all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
41 generations in Montepulciano down
Yeah,
to
it's
2 or
amazing.
3. It's really cool.
It's getting busy in here. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
We're so happy
Thank
we
you.
got a chance to get together.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, man.
Next
Neighbor.
time we're down, we'll stop in for a glass of wine. And
Please
we've got
do.
some, and when it's all said and done, we got some wine to sell right
We
now.
do.
Okay.
We got a lot more
Right.
to talk about.
The
in
customers are
future.
coming in.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Wine Talks with Paul, Callum, Carey. Don't forget to subscribe because there's more great interviews on their way. Folks, have a great time out there in the wine world. Cheers.